welcome to part 4 of my journey to Rikohu Chatham Island, the return trip back to New Zealand. In the previous episode, I built a new rudder with the help of the local and also explored the island. In that time, I'd been keeping a close eye on the weather forecast. The summer was already over and I still had a lot of sailing to do. Luckily, there was quite a promising looking weather forecast. I'd have to wait for a gale to go past, and then a high came along and gave me an easy downwind run back to the mainland. That gale became 2 gales, and by the time the weather window was set to start, it had changed completely. There were now a series of small systems that came past, changing from northwest to southwest, and nothing steady at all. The only consolation was that it wasn't dead on the nose, and it wasn't really strong, not more than 25 knots, and it looked like it might actually become favourable at the end if I can avoid that low pressure system that's coming down from the tropics. At the end of the gale, the wind turned south, the beam reached, so I decided I would leave as soon as the wind got below 25 knots. I climbed to the top of the hill to check the wind speed and direction. It's still pretty windy out there, and the direction could be a little bit more favourable. According to the weather model, 7 PM. John hitched the mooring. We're away. After everything I needed to get ready, I ended up leaving after dark.
Well, I had the great idea that I would start sailing back at night right after a gale. It's quite bumpy. Already been seasick, quite bad though. We're not going fast, but we're going kind of the right direction. We might pass the reef without adjusting anything. I got a bit cold on deck and then came inside, and then that's where I was seasick. The motion's actually improved quite a bit since we got past the out of the shallow water. Now we're like 70 metres deep. We've now cleared Western Reef, so we've officially left Chatham Island. A few more hazards on the way to Littleton, but no more rocks. It's now 10 AM on day 2, that makes it 14 hours since we've been sailing. We're now becalmed. I put the drifter up this morning, and then all the looking down and stuff that took was sick again. I had an apple this morning. That didn't taste so good on the way back up. Very appley though. Albatross also need wind. According to the weather model, the wind should be starting again soon, and I've got the sails up and we're going 2 knots. The albatross flying again. Moving steadily now, 4 knots and a bit. It's now the evening of day 2, which is, since I left after dark, it's just coming up on the first 24 hours at sea. Haven't made much progress. I've done less than 60 miles, but been becalmed all day. Still feel a little bit like I'm recovering from a hangover after being quite seasick yesterday. Pleasant conditions right now. Yeah, swell's dying down, we're in deeper water, although we're only a few hundred metres on the Chatham Rise, which will be most of the trip unless we end up getting further north or further south. I'm going to aim for further north if that happens. Too cloudy for a pretty sunset. Okay, it's the morning of the 3rd day. With all the controls set up now. It took just a second to adjust the boat to be sailing close haul, and I didn't have to put on a raincoat or on the deck. There wasn't a lot of fruit available on Chatham Island, but I got 3 oranges and I decided that I would eat them on the way, rationing them by distance, not by days. So when I made it 1/4, I get an orange, halfway I get an orange, 2/3, 3/4 get an orange, and then when I get there, I can have anything I want. And I've made the first quarter, so now I get an orange. If I had had fairer and steadier winds, I could have easily covered this distance in 24 hours or less. So it was important to just chip away at the miles, and any progress was a good thing. And it was a good orange too.
the wind suddenly picked up and it ripped my whole side setup winch out. It was only screwed in. I really found it quite useful, so it was quite discouraging to have it break, especially so early in the voyage. We just crossed the line into the eastern hemisphere again, which actually feels like a relief. Day 4. I can't believe it's day 4, but that's because started like a little late on the first day. Beautiful day today. Light wind, like going along 5 knots on a close reach. Fortunately the wind's blowing the wrong direction from the direction we want to go, so it's northwest and we're going northeast slightly. This blew me back across the 180-degree line. Forrest had commented that by crossing the line I was now entitled to a golden dragon tattoo. I crossed it once on the outgoing trip, and now because of this zigzag I've crossed it 4 times. Still a little bit splashy to dry stuff out. I was hoping for a straight northerly. It was probably the weather pattern just like moved a slightly different latitude, so that might not happen. The major thing for today is 25 knots southwesterly, which won't be pleasant, but will push me back towards New Zealand a lot better than this is. But we are getting close to getting off the Chatham Rise, which is like a big bank. It comes up, it's like 300 metres deep, but if we get north of it we'll be in 1,000 metre deep water, which is better. Successfully staying quite warm and dry inside. This boat's basically like, there's the hatch and then there's the bed and there's on deck, and on deck you're going to get wet, so I can stand in the hatch or I can lie on the bed. I prefer to lie on the bed. Solar sailing is like the extreme sport that's mostly lying in bed reading. Occasionally fixing things and bailing and getting drenched, but mostly lying in bed reading. You'd like it. Spent some time up on deck, tidy up and repair. I put the hatch pin rail back together. I took the winch off because that was the problem. Just screwed it back on. That gives me cleats for the self-steering. So I still need to get up on deck to adjust the sheets, but from the hatch I can adjust the self-steering at least, which is more often what I want to adjust, to be honest. And I also tacked, and now we're heading dead west. Perfect. I should have tacked before. Anyway, going straight in the right direction and still going 5 knots. So I'm happy. But I'm expecting a southwest, so we're going to have to tack back. It's probably going to be several hours before the wind changes anyway, so that might get us 10-15 miles. Yeah. Earned a piece of chocolate, definitely. Southwest wind hits. The good news is my socks are still dry. Gym tour. Quite badly. Big tear. Put the Yankee on, which I don't use much because it's not very big. It's not really much point because it's the same size as the staysail. That's on, but then it was too windy for that, so I took that down. One reef in the main and staysail, 4 to 5 knots in a good direction, so that's good. So really bumping along. Well, we're only 2 good days sail from Wellington on the weather model. About half the time is good sailing, so maybe we'll about make it in 4 days. Just went out again to fix the self-steering. It's actually kind of a simple one. Knew all the things to check. So what happens is the rope goes around the back of the blade. Anyway, I have to get the boat hook and then untangle it. And then while I was doing that, I tangled the rope around the boat hook and I couldn't get the boat hook back. I was like, shit, this just became much more difficult. We're nearly closer to the North Island than Chatham Island, which is nice progress, but on the other hand, we're heading towards completely barren and inhospitable part of the North Island, Castle Point, Wairarapa coast, where there's no safe harbours. But a different wind will come and that'll blow me some other place. It's Sunday morning, day 5. Well, the forecast today, light wind and then probably becalmed for a bit and then northerly. The sky over there is a little bit red, which according to a rhyme is sailor's warning. I'm not sure if I need additional warnings. We're making progress. We're definitely closer to New Zealand now. In fact, if we had 1.5 days of like a good wind
in the right direction, we could make it to somewhere. If that northerly comes, that can last a while and could take us most of the way to Christchurch, which isn't the closest place. But was actually the original plan. The tracks kind of look a bit like that.
Another bad thing has happened. The winch fell off the mast. It was on deck. I recovered these pieces. I'm missing one more of those. Hope it's still on deck. Fantastic news. I actually found all the little bits for the winch and put it back together. Didn't think that was going to happen. With 5 to 6, sometimes even 7 knots, so excellent. Oh, also, this thing, I have no illusions that it's going to save my life if I fall off, hypothermia, but it's actually really great insulation on deck. Way warmer with the wind. It's just like, it's so thick. The inflatable ones don't provide that at all, but this really makes a huge difference. Like, actually I'm wearing all wet clothes and I'm not cold because of that, I'm pretty sure.
My wind indicators are these ribbons, and they have the advantage of, normally there's arrow on the masthead. I have ribbons on different parts of the boat. Several advantages. Of course, you can see the wind direction, not as precisely as the arrow, but you can also see speed, wind speed. So they tell you direction and speed. I mean, speed is like, kind of like, oh, it's a bit more wavy, a bit less wavy. Anyway, it's getting a bit less wavy now. It's getting light.
Well, good news. The sun is nearly out and the decks are dry. Attempt to get a few things dried out and see if I can repair that sail and have some breakfast. The fun thing about this trip, normally, you leave in good conditions, you're sailing along, you make good progress, and then like the crux comes and something fucks up, gale because it took too long or something breaks or something like this, and then you're like, oh shit, I have to, rise above that. But on this trip, basically it was totally shit right from the start. It wasn't just like, oh, just hove to and then the last bit of sail in when it comes down. It was like, I actually just have to not fuck up things worse, make progress, and hold on the whole way. Breakfast, I'm going to have hash browns and a fried egg. The hash browns, they're just potato. Some people buy like frozen hash browns, but you just have to have a grater and potatoes so you can just make your own hash browns. They're an excellent boat provision because if you just keep them in the dark, they last for fucking ages. Bon appetit! Got the drifter back up and realise it's received a little bit more damage than I thought. Of course I will get it down the moment the wind increases. Right now I'm expecting it to decrease. Okay, evaluation stage of this potential sail repair. Tears goes here, nearly to the hank, all the way to that side. Then that bit's completely tattered, and then this thing comes back here too. So basically, the simple way would be to basically replace this entire panel. The funny thing is, there was a few spots where I noticed I was getting a bit tatty, and I patched them preemptively, and at both sides it stopped at my patch. I should have done it all the way along. This sail was pretty fucked. Most people would look at this and say that's a write-off. I've got the staysail and the Yankee, got a cutter rig. Together they're about the same size as this. And then I have the drifter, which also needs repairs. The staysail, so when using just the jib, the staysail and the Yankee are the same area. So I can just substitute that. I just have a gap when I have the jib and the staysail. That I'd be under canvas. That's not a particularly wide gap though. And with the Yankee instead of it, I'll just go a little bit slower. It's definitely a big job to fix it, and I don't think I'm going to get that much light weather today. Okay, making some good improvements here. Water was getting in here. I thought I had upgraded the seals, but one of them had sort of slipped out. What I did is I just opened it and I stuffed in some plastic wrap along here, an old shirt in front of the front,
So I think that should slow the water down. Also been drying stuff, including some of the bedding. Just good, I like having a dry bed. We've reached the stage of the becalming when the only wind is basically made by the swell. Each wave like just pushes a bit of wind in front of it, so you get a little gust of wind that feels like you could sail when the wave comes, and then it stops after the wave passes. You can't really sail on that. I'm real happy I've been able to dry out by going on deck clothes. It really drains you having to put on wet clothes again and again. Just logged my updated position, and I'm right on the halfway mark. That means I get the second orange. I've actually travelled much further than halfway, but not in a very straight line. The big job of this car was patching up the sail. This big one here, little one up top, looking quite glorious, I think. Looking like a proper sea hobo. Not just a homemade tarpaulin sail, but crudely patched as well. Such a relief to be becalmed today. On a sunny becalmed. Feels like starting the trip over again, now that everything is dry again. And also fixed a few other things. Ways water was getting in. Hopefully they're good now. Currently close hauled with the drifter, but it seems to be building quite fast, so that might change soon. Sailing into the sunset. Along really good right now. 6.5 knots with the drifter and single reefed main. It's not over canvassed, but for sail balance I needed to reef the main because otherwise it kept on turning up and then it would lose speed. So reefing actually made it go faster because it was balanced. I think that's the kind of sunrise that's meant to be the warning. We've got a forecast.
Conway Monday, northwest 20 knots, changing southerly 20 knots, south of WV.
Not expecting to get a forecast while it's still this far out, so that was a really pleasant surprise. And it's good news as well. Cook and Castle Point currently have gale conditions apparently. That's sort of actually closest to where I am, but it's not a gale here. I think I'm just outside of that. And for Cook Strait, Venturi, it says 35, north 35 in the morning, easing to 20. I'm already in 20 knots, so I think that'll be okay. Then in the afternoons we're going to go southerly, stay southerly until tomorrow morning. So, but then every day it's switching between north and south on a daily basis, which is awkward. We've mainly got to go west, and given that prevailing winds are westerly, this looks like a good opportunity to head west on alternating beam reach, and then eventually we'll get close enough, either Wellington or Christchurch, depending on where we are and how it works out and stuff like that. All this bad shit happened at the start, and it's been actually, like recently, like good things happen. I think the turning point was discovering the winch had fallen off, but then finding all the pieces. That's like way too lucky. That's just ridiculous. If you just like hold on, make progress, try not to let things get too much worse, then eventually something good will happen. You'll be able to crawl your way out of there. Caught a large piece of kelp on the self-steering. It's definitely a hazard with this design. There we go. Look what I just found on deck. That's a flying fish. I did not realise they came this far south. Maybe because of global warming. Looks like a good frying size. Okay, so I've scraped the scales off, gutted it and split it down the middle so I can just fry it. So we're going to get the pan hot and then chuck it in and then cook it with the lid on, maybe for a minute.
Smelling good, a little bit more. Favorite line in Tao Te Ching. Governing a great nation is the same as frying a small fish. Don't poke it too much. Okay, I reckon that's done. It's pretty good. Now I'm a real ocean sailor. Now that I've eaten flying fish that landed on my boat. We are just racing along. We've been going all afternoon. I'm like 6, sometimes 7 knots. In close reach. Look at how battered my drifter is getting. You know, that's how it cost me $100 to make. I think it's lasted a year and a trip to Chatham Island and back. So I think it has done great. Like, we've got southeast now, so it's just like close reach, straight. We're sort of aiming for Kaikoura, which is near the top of the South Island, and then we should have a northeast 15 knots tomorrow, which is just perfect. Okay, it's morning of 7th day. Just getting ready for the final boss battle. Coffee here. Spinning us up. The wind's still a little light. We go like a knot faster on a beam reach and it's still mostly in the right direction. When the wind picks up, we turn down more. Looks like 20 knots, but it doesn't feel like 20 knots because we're doing like 8 knots. I'm a little bit nervous, but we're simply holding on. It doesn't pick up anymore. We surged ahead riding following waves all under south steering. The waves would push us over 10, 12, I thought 15. But sometimes the boat would slew and the spinnaker would flog for a bit. Okay, that's the end of my glorious spinnaker run. I learnt quite a lot about sailing by doing that. Shame to rip my spinnaker. I've never actually ripped a spinnaker before. So that's a personal achievement. Now I need to learn how to repair a spinnaker. Yeah, I was actually pretty nervous the whole time, but it went fucking fast. Now I'm going to see, start at the bottom, smaller sails, and then work up to just get it going reasonable speed. Going surprisingly fast with just this little sail. Coming down the waves, doing like 7, in the troughs, dropping down to like 4s. Staysail and the Yankee. I would have a bigger jib up there probably, but that one is torn as well. I hope no one thought I was just going to sail in there. Headwinds. Also, dolphins are glowing in the dark, which I don't think I'm going to show you because I don't think any of my, it's not going to come up on the camera. Definitely not. Dolphins are like streaming phosphorescence and swimming around the boat. We were just going along quite quietly, and then we got hit by a very sudden southerly. Went from all the sail up to like fully 25 knots really. It even gave me such a fright I didn't even wait to get dressed properly. Okay, the funny thing is we're actually going in the right direction now. 20 miles to the harbour entrance. Thanks Peninsula. The wind has eased enough to increase sail, but it's quite cold. This southerly coming up from Antarctica, so I'm having coffee first to soak myself up. It was a lot nicer weather in further north. I haven't sailed a place quite like this. I guess with those very tall hills, it's like the lull is like nothing. But when then the gust comes, it's like way too much. It is a lot colder here than it was even at sea yesterday. Just dropped anchor, Diamond Harbour, Port Lyttelton. 11 AM.
So it's been 6 days, 14 hours and 7 minutes.
I had to double check my math there. It was 8 calendar days, but I started so late on the first day and ended so early in the last day that it was only 6 whole days and not enough of the end days to add up to another day. So it was 6 days